You know that feeling, right? That incredible high when you finally get something you've wanted for ages. But then, almost like clockwork, that amazing feeling, it just kind of fades away. Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into the science of why that happens and, way more importantly, what you can actually do about it. It's something we all experience. That brand new phone becomes just, well, your phone. That huge promotion and salary bump, it just becomes your new normal. And honestly, it can feel a little discouraging, can it? Like we're just running in place, always chasing a feeling that never really sticks around. Well, it turns out there's a name for this whole thing. So let me introduce you to hedonic adaptation, or as it's more famously known, the hedonic treadmill. The whole idea is that our emotional system is a lot like our sense of smell. You know how you walk into a room, smell a strong scent, and then a few minutes later you don't even notice it? That's what our brains do with happiness. We get a big spike, but then we just reset back to our baseline. And to prove this isn't just some abstract theory, let's look at some really powerful, kind of shocking evidence. To really put this treadmill idea to the test, researchers decided to go to the absolute extremes. They looked at people who won the lottery, a massive life win, and people who had suffered terrible, life-altering accidents. And what they found? It would totally change how we think about happiness forever. Yeah, so this landmark study was done back in 1978 by a guy named Philip Brickman and his team. They compared these two extreme groups to a regular control group, people who hadn't had any huge life event. And the assumption going in was pretty simple, right? Lottery winners must be permanently on cloud nine, and accident victims must be just devastated. I mean, that makes sense. Well, the results were not at all what anyone expected. Okay, this is where it gets wild. Just 1 year later, the lottery winners, they weren't really any happier than the control group. But here's the crazy part. They actually reported getting less pleasure from everyday stuff. You know, like chatting with a friend or just enjoying a cup of coffee. On the other side of the coin, the accident victims showed this incredible resilience. Their happiness levels were already moving back toward where they started. This is something called the contrast effect. The sheer intensity of winning the lottery was so massive, so off the charts, that it made all the normal, simple pleasures of life feel, well, kind of boring in comparison. That one peak experience had basically ruined the small stuff for them. So hearing all this, it sounds a little bleak, doesn't it? I mean, if we just adapt to everything good that happens to us, are we just stuck on this treadmill forever? Are we just doomed to always return to our baseline no matter what we achieve? For a long, long time, that was pretty much the thinking. But, and this is a big but, thankfully, the science has moved on. The answer to that question, it turns out, is a huge, resounding no. Lasting happiness is absolutely not completely out of our control. This right here is the modern way of looking at it, often called the 50-40-10 model. So about 50% of your general happiness level seems to be determined by your genetics, sort of a biological set point. And get this, only about 10% is determined by your life circumstances, things like how much money you make, your job, where you live. Only 10%. But that leaves this massive piece of the pie left over. 40%. A huge 40% of our long-term happiness comes down to our intentional activities, the conscious choices we make, the habits we build, the way we think. This is where the power is. This 40% is our ticket off the treadmill. Okay, so to really make the most of that 40%, we first have to understand why our brain is built this way in the first place. I mean, why would evolution design a brain that gets bored with good things? It seems kind of counterintuitive. Well, when you think about it from a survival point of view, it makes perfect sense. Think of your happiness like a signal, not a permanent state. If our ancestors ate one big meal and then were just permanently happy and satisfied, they would have lost the motivation to go find the next meal or to keep an eye out for the next predator. Our brain is designed to reset, to keep us hungry, to keep us striving, and that's what kept us alive. And the key chemical player in all of this is dopamine. Now, we often hear it called the pleasure chemical, but that's not exactly right. Your brain enjoys a reward, sure, but what it really loves, what really gets that dopamine flowing, is an unpredicted reward. It's all about the surprise. This whole process is called reward prediction error. So, let's say you get that unexpected promotion. Boom! The reward is way higher than your brain predicted, and you get a huge dopamine hit. But here's the thing. Your brain is a super fast learner. It immediately updates its prediction. So by the time your next paycheck comes, that bigger salary is now expected. The surprise is gone, and so is that dopamine surge. The good thing is still there, but the error signal that created the joy has been corrected. And that right there, is the treadmill in action on a neurological level. All right, so we get what the treadmill is and we know why it exists. Now for the most important part, the part you've been waiting for. How do we actually use our 40% to consciously step off it? This is your practical toolkit. First things first, we need to know where to put our effort. The research is pretty clear. We adapt super quickly to static, unchanging things, new stuff like cars and gadgets, or a stable pay raise. But we adapt really slowly, sometimes never, to dynamic things like a miserable daily commute, or to fundamental things like strong social connections and meaningful, difficult challenges. This gives us a massive clue about what we should be chasing.
So here are some of the key science-backed strategies. Introduce variety into your life. Don't let good things become routine. Practice gratitude to consciously fight against taking things for granted. And this one's a game changer. Studies show that buying time, like paying for a cleaning service, gives a more lasting happiness boost than buying a new thing. And finally, pursue what are called gratifications, challenging activities that use your skills, like learning an instrument or training for a race. And above all, invest in your relationships because we never get used to the benefits of real human connection. This all ties into a really powerful framework called self-determination theory. It basically says that instead of just chasing fleeting pleasure, we should focus on fulfilling 3 core psychological needs or nutrients. There's autonomy, the feeling that you're in control of your own life, competence, that feeling of getting better at something, of mastery, and relatedness, that feeling of connection to other people. See, unlike a new car, you never really adapt to having these needs met. They're the building blocks of real, sustainable well-being. So that's really the key takeaway here. The happiness treadmill is a real thing, but it mostly applies to passive pleasures and material possessions. By shifting our focus from just getting more stuff to actively engaging in things like variety, gratitude, and meaningful challenges, we can grab hold of that 40% and build a happiness that actually lasts. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Instead of chasing the next fleeting pleasure, what meaningful challenge, what gratification can you start pursuing today?